Welcome to another episode of the Hirys Podcast.
Verifiability is not built into the internet, unfortunately, and that means you can't really trust all of the websites you use. There's this fear of cybersecurity and data leakage and all of that stuff. You don't have privacy as a fundamental right, nor the ability to guarantee or actually even prevent yourself from interacting with false programs. Our mission fundamentally originated from making the internet verifiable.
GM, welcome to the Hirys Podcast. I'm Jake Lewis, and it's my job to break down projects and interview founders building in the Hirys ecosystem. Today, I had the chance to sit down with Alec James, who oversees ecosystem growth, strategy, and operations at Nexus. The vision of this team is to build a verifiable internet for the AI economy, and they're positioning themselves to do just that through a purpose-built L1 along with a ZK VM, which ultimately paves the way for contributing to a single universal proof. We cover a lot. You'll hear us talk about the vision of Nexus, technical and architectural choices, as well as learnings from a successful testnet campaign. We'll also talk through roadmap highlights, partnerships, broader industry trends, and what the future of Nexus will look like. You can learn more about Nexus at nexus.xyz. And as always, you can check out Hirys at iris.xyz. Enjoy. Alec, welcome to the show.
Hello, Jake. Thanks for having me.
Of course, thanks for joining. So the main topic for today is obviously going to be Nexus, but before we go deep there, would love to kick the day off by talking a little bit about your journey to the project. So why'd you decide to join Nexus and what is it that you do there?
Yeah, thank you. I really came into crypto around 2022 from the climate tech space. I originally wanted to be a climate tech entrepreneur, so bringing technologies that improve sustainability, but also profitability to industries. And I stumbled into crypto 2022. A friend was making money on NFTs. I started trying to understand why, how, what. Dove into white papers and immediately saw from like a systems thinking approach that the programmability, immutability, decentralization of these type of blockchain networks really could, if implemented well, solve the issues that I've seen time and again with like climate change and the tragedy of the commons and the fact that a lot of these climate talks, right, never actually lead to much. And it's because you have this distribution and misaligned incentives, and started to see the same thing coming to the fore with AI. I've always been a sci-fi nut, and AI ethics has always been a thing. It's always been reactive and no one really cares. And I started with crypto in this regenerative finance space, thinking about blockchain for impact. It was introduced to AI and blockchain, always with this mission of trying to help people empower people. And I worked at Aura for a bit. And now since then, I've worked at Nexus, which really, I think, combines a lot of the empowerment I was excited about by distributed systems and this equality that can share around the world with this sort of proactive protectionism against some of the negative outcomes of AI. So Nexus really is a place where, and that verifiability and decentralization and tokenization tooling comes together. Here, I am a business operations and strategy manager. So that's basically managing and cultivating a healthy and exciting ecosystem and guiding a lot of those partnerships or deals to product integrations, marketing initiatives, community initiatives for our global communities. That's a path I took to get to Nexus. But yeah, super passionate about technologies that can empower the world. And I think both blockchain and AI can do so if implemented correctly. And I really think that for both of those, decentralization really helps that implementation of correct values. How can a 20-person alignment team at OpenAI decide what is aligned for the entire world of 8 billion people? Well, a distributed or decentralized sort of governance system or any integrated decentralized system in the AI stack, I think can better get us there. But yeah, bit of background.
100%. Yeah, I appreciate that. And you're also preaching to the choir there, my friend. We have very, very similar views in a lot of ways. So that's good to hear. It seems like your entire process has been very thoughtful and driven by curiosity. And in a very similar light, it seems the leadership team kind of across the board has very solid alignment and how they've kind of progressed and why they decided to join the team. You know, across the board, they're also very impressive. You have representation from the Ivy League, Mag 7, a lot of different successful crypto projects and brands. So how did it all come together? Do you know the origin story of Nexus, what the process was to recruit a lot of this high density talent?
Yes, great question. One of the first events where I got exposed to Nexus, I remember hearing about our chief strategy officer, Alex Fowler, who has been in the ZK Ethereum enterprise space for many years at this point, seasoned operator. But I remember him telling me how he remembers being back in sort of Daniel Marin, our CEO's Stanford sort of dorm room, effectively running the first version of the ZKVM and seeing it work. And that was how they really formed that strong bond and went out to start a company with that. And I know Daniel, who went to Stanford and is a sort of international physics Olympiad candidate in his past, he was really tight within the sort of cryptography community at Stanford, so much so that he was actually able to recruit Jens Groth, inventor of the Groth 16 proving framework for ZK proofs. It's one of the top two used, I think, of all ZK proving frameworks. And also Victor Miller, who co-invented elliptic curve cryptography. I almost couldn't believe that I would get to sit across from him for a while, as he's a legend in cryptography and internet and cybersecurity and cryptocurrency. I would say fundamentally is driven from the North Star of Daniel Marin, who both has the talent, the vision, the drive to bring together and impress a lot of these veteran leaders and operators in the space, especially people like Alex Valia, as I mentioned, those cryptography experts. And I think for me, at least, my personal experiences coming in, just from the interview process, I could tell these were high integrity people, mission aligned with myself, and especially people I can learn from. I think a lot of the time in Web3, it's very empowering in that it allows anyone of any age to go through capital formation, distribution, bootstrap community, all of that. But oftentimes you might interact with teams with less experience, which often works. But this team is packed with experience and the lessons that come from long-term operating in the startup space. Yeah, I think really Daniel Marin attracted through his technical prowess, this high integrity team. We're launching a new layer one, right? And there are plenty of layer ones out there. There's been plenty of work done, but we're in a unique position to use the best available infrastructure and basically design the network to tackle a lot of the still remaining issues in the space.
The founder market fit, really the team market fit.
Founder market fit.
Insane. Yeah. And taking a step back, you alluded to this a little bit earlier. You kind of started to touch on it just now.
Yeah.
But for the audience that isn't familiar with Nexus, what's the vision? What is it that you guys are building from like a tactical perspective?
Yes, thank you. I will go deep here. But yeah, so I'd say it all starts with the ZKVM, right? And for us, we basically draw our mission back to Turing. And we like say we're standing on the shoulders of giants, these sort of cryptographic and computer science-based giants. Turing really invented when he tried to solve Hilbert's problem. He really started to explore first the universal Turing machine, which sort of led to artificial intelligence, the ability to compute any data, right? Compute over any input data and get an output. But he also, through trying to solve that problem, which was actually unsolvable, started this trend of verifiable computation, right? So formal verification, cryptographic verification, cryptoeconomic verification eventually will spun out from, can you find a solution for this problem? Verification and verifiability is all about proving whether a computation was done correctly. And it really originated, like I said, hand in hand from the computation that we know and love and use in computers and AI now. Verifiability is not built into the internet, unfortunately, and that means you can't really trust all of the websites you use. There's this fear of cybersecurity and data leakage and all of that stuff. You don't have privacy as a fundamental right, nor the ability to guarantee or actually even prevent yourself from interacting with false programs. Our mission fundamentally originated from making the internet verifiable. And in order to do that, we need to have a massive compute network, because verifiability and the process of using a zero knowledge virtual machine, zero knowledge proofs for as many computations or data sets are possible in the internet, it's very computationally intensive and can be expensive. So we are designing and have started to create and amass a compute network to power that sort of verifiable internet. So anyone in the world can both run a program or application or bit of data through our zero knowledge virtual machine, and anyone else in the world can trust and use that application and freely check for very low cost anywhere the verifiability and the proof of that being done correctly. So that's really how our network is built up. We start with a zero knowledge virtual machine. Goal there to make the internet entirely verifiable eventually, so you won't have to interact with false programs or false data. And then we have the compute network, which we've so far amassed with multiple test nets over about 1.5 year period. We have about 2.5 million users globally verified, proving and providing compute to this network. Next, we're going out to launch our layer 1 blockchain, which is going to act as the settlement layer for all these proofs and applications as we slowly encompass the internet and make it verifiable. So that's really what I would say is the picture perfect vision and mission and how the different components fit together, the ZKVM, the proven network, and then the blockchain. But with this new sort of one AI boom we're seeing, and also the new regulatory sort of environment and interest, I feel like having deja vu, we have all this renewed interest in enterprise blockchain. My personal vision and our vision here is that our understanding, right, is that tokenization toolings and solutions are actually amplified and the benefits are accelerated by AI. So we're really positioning to have the solutions, the benefits we provide from verifiable computation, tokenization, all the Web3 tools, be accelerated with AI tooling. And looking to really meet this enterprise and institutional interest head on, especially in the US. So that's the goal. I think we intend to finalize, we intend to have the traditional sort of backbone of Web3 infrastructure that you know and love, the DEXs, the lending protocols, token launchpads, but really look to go above and beyond in onboarding new capital and new users and new businesses and new revenue. So everyone usually is competing for the small pie of crypto developers, crypto users, crypto liquidity. We're again taking this opportunity and this renewed interest to actually solve some issues with real businesses, bring parts of their operations on chain, and then use that to subsidize and fuel a healthy ecosystem instead of just inflating our token away.
It's fascinating. And it seems like the timing has really come together in an ideal way, especially with what you're building.
Like yours, Hirys Network, and others that can expand on the capabilities of this network.
100%. And it struck me as very fascinating, kind of that latter component that you alluded to as it relates to expanding the pie. So with a very basic question to kind of respond and follow up to that, why would anyone care, one, that the internet is verifiable? And then two, you've alluded to some of these downstream implications or use cases. What might they look like practically?
Great question. And this is really the question that comes up all the time, I think. Why do people care? People currently maybe don't care as much, but it is going to be critical for the sort of integration of AI deeper into the internet. Right now, AI itself has a lot of attack vectors for foreign entities and malicious actors to implement and manipulate the outcomes. I think we've seen a lot of these studies put out by either Anthropic or I know maybe Spheron, I think, in the Web3 space, put out a report on how agents can be manipulated just from system prompting and different prompt attacks, right? And the actual sort of minimum threshold percentage of times it can be manipulated is far too high. I think it was like 15% or something like that. And so verifiability here is going to be critical for that AI agent future where you are interacting with networks, the internet, each other, e-commerce through agents, right? Because verifiability isn't just the retroactive confidence and comfortability in you interacted with something or something interacted on your behalf without any issues. Is actually the proactive programmatic guardrails as well. With the vision we envision for the internet, every computation, every piece of data will come with a proof of correctness. And programs should logically start to gate access to their input mechanisms for data and programs and outputs that are only those that carry a correct proof. So at a certain point, it is proactive. And that's going to be a lot more critical for the user experience on the AI agent front. To me, that is going to be the first sort of influx of acceptance and confidence in verifiability. Right now, like most internet users, they don't care if their data is that private. They don't care about X, Y, and Z. But if we want to reach this sort of economic surplus future of every individual has thousands of agents buying things on their behalf, as soon as you add money to the flow, verifiability becomes a lot more important. So I think it will start to be a little demanded on the user side, if not required, for those guardrails to prevent losses and just inefficiencies on the user end. And then in more high stakes industries with that integration of AI, whether it's healthcare, law, governance, defense, DARPA and the Pentagon are already using verifiable, high confidential computation sort of systems, whether it's trusted execution environments, zero knowledge virtual machines. DARPA itself has a project where they're developing one internally. which is exactly what we're building too, you even more require that, again, programmatic guardrailing and privacy provided by zero knowledge proofs, that verifiability for these high stakes industries. And again, we're going to be limited as a society in our ability to realize those positive outcomes of AI if we can't integrate them in high stakes industries. And in order to do that safely, you need an aspect of verifiability. Now, I can't tell you whether that will come from like top down legislation will be demanded from the end user. I think it'll be a combination of both. But even it might be from the AI companies themselves, right? Right now, there's this gray area of like, where does culpability fall? And does it fall on OpenAI if suddenly their models are being used in healthcare? I'm sure that they would not want that liability, and I'm sure they already have it in their policies that it's not on them. But I think verifiability adds an audit trail to assign culpability. So that was a long-winded answer of why verifiability is important. It's a bit of a slow burn. And I think I painted a vision of the future a little bit. Some of the downstream opportunities, yeah, I can just talk about a few. Having cross-border payments and payment systems for businesses operate on-chain at zero cost privately, and having on-chain agents automate and optimize those would be great for international businesses. That's the sort of thing we're going to be looking to provide. Allowing more distribution, identification of customers, again, for an international user base. I think that's really where blockchain networks thrive, right? We have 2.5 million plus international users, but any business in the US that suddenly wants to attract attention for its brand and product, they can launch a token or launch a product or send out NFT vouchers, right, to users on our network to make them aware of their brand and products. And through those tokenization toolings, starting to identify, okay, mint this NFT if you're this kind of consumer, or mint this if you're that, or we'll send you this for interacting this way on our site. AI agents can accentuate that and start to better categorize these personas, figure out how to extract more consumer and produce a surplus, which is better for both sort of entities, and assign products more specifically to them. That's how I see sort of AI and verifiability going hand.
It's fascinating. And with these answers, you're doing a great job of answering my next question. So you're making life really easy on me. So I appreciate that. So I also, it struck me as really interesting that DARPA is funding or building, effectively a competitor. How do you guys look at that internally? Is that validation of what you're building and that the space that you're in is super interesting? Or two, is it, kind of terrifying to a degree that the US government is trying to play in the same space that you are?
Exciting question. It's definitely a validation for us. We are developing our own ZK VM, but having been in the ZK space for about 2 years, and I just was at House of ZK's conference in Berlin on a panel, and we were discussing how you're going to start to see ZK VMs sort of performance optimized for different use cases. Right now, a lot of the benchmarking is imperfect because it really focuses on one component of the ZK VM. And so different teams can optimize their architecture to really hyper perform in that component, but not others. And so what I think is going to come next is we're going to have a second level of evaluation. To what degree is this ZK VM and its capabilities optimized for, again, privacy in healthcare, or high confidential computing in defense and government, or identity, like Google just implemented ZK proofs in their identity solution. I think we're going to start to see different sort of variations and flavors of ZK VMs. And actually at Nexus, we welcome any collaborators or developers of ZK VMs alongside us. We'd love to offer on our layer one access to developers and users to all kinds of ZK VMs, so we have that full scope of applicable use cases. I don't know if DARPA's one will be there. I'm sure they'd keep it in-house and ultra proprietary, but yeah, would also be interesting to collaborate with them in the future after our next sort of 6 to 9 months of big launches.
Sure. All about growing the pie.
All about growing the pie. All about everyone's got to win.
100%. And for those listening, DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency in the United States. I just wanted to kind of clarify that really quickly. But I think actually the internet was born out of DARPA. But I guess my left curve brain kind of starts to dilute a lot of this and starts to really make the inference that what's really being built, I guess, long-term here is a space for agents to operate mainstream on-chain in a way that's kind of abstracted in terms of kind of the activities that are being done, on-chain.
Yes.
And maybe I'm wrong with that, but is that kind of a fair characterization for looking 2, 3, 5 years down the road?
Definitely a fair characterization. Again, I think where we're really establishing our initial moat is in this user base of really engaged international users. And we're excited to go to any brand, any company, any protocol and say, like, hey, here's a new way to get exposure to millions of people around the world. And the future we're designing for is a future in which these individuals and these brands and companies and institutional capital can have thousands of agents operating on their behalf. We're taking little design measures like proof carrying data, where every data point, every transaction comes with a verifiable proof that both carries an audit log for agents of their history, and so acts as built-in memory. And then also, again, ensures that no wrongly computed or malicious data is computed over. Again, there's this word horizontal scalability that we're really aiming for, and that's where a lot of our design choices work towards. And that is, instead of each agent having to operate sequentially, they can do a bunch of computations in sequence, that would be sequentially, horizontally, so that you can have multiple agents operating at the same time within the same block space. I think most agents, if they want to record every step verifiably and on chain, you have to wait for these subsequent blocks or batch them in some capacities. Yeah, really looking to have built-in agent memory in the chain, built-in proofs, no malicious activities happen, and that horizontal scalability, with the end goal being million agent simulations being run in one component of our chain by some simulation entity. It could be an MMORPG, could be other teams. We're chatting with a team, Chirper AI, who are developing out a sort of sandbox landscape reminiscent of Stanford Smallville, where little agents who act like humans can interact, and they need a lot of computation capacity there and the ability to run these, maybe perhaps multiple of these simulations with thousands of transactions in a very short time.
It's funny you mentioned Chirper. They were actually the second or maybe the third team that we had on the podcast. So we're also working with them. They're a very, very sharp team, and I've already done a lot. Already also created an absurd amount of data, like 2 petabytes or something like that.
And I think some of the networks they've worked with have struggled under that load, not to name names, but we're looking to basically service that kind of load, right? Where you can have millions of agents acting in a world together and it be decentralized, and you can build sort of prediction markets and other things on top of that.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating because the core kind of first principles view that I was trying to draw out here is this idea that we both agree that agents will operate more effectively on chain as opposed to off chain. But in any form of design, there are, especially in architecture, there are some trade-offs that you have to kind of look at. And some teams are choosing to add layers to existing chains to kind of support this advancement. Obviously, you kind of laid out some of the pros and the rationale for why that you decided to build your own L1 to kind of support a lot of this. Are you worried at all about congestion, especially if there's like that level of volume that's occurring? And I know you talked about kind of scaling horizontally, but is there also a vertical scaling approach? Or are you working with anyone kind of on to build out L2s or anything of that nature for a little bit more customized block space? Would love to hear kind of a little bit more there and really what you think about as it relates to some of the trade-offs with the design that you guys have constructed.
Great question. I really love Web3 because I feel like there is so much room to collaborate and people are also very willing to collaborate. We are open and eager with all arms to any networks and protocols that can basically amplify our capabilities. By running, we're sort of decoupling the execution, storage, and consensus layers and running them all through our ZK VM to unify them through a verifiable consensus. And what that basically in theory allows us to do is to supercharge each of those layers. We're excited to work with Hirys to amplify our storage capabilities there. We're excited to work with data availability teams, different consensus optimization teams like Espresso at all layers of the stack there. And again, there's been so much great work done. We just want to bring it all together to provide the most expansive capabilities for our users, developers, businesses, etc. And in terms of like vertical scaling, part of our roadmap involves providing custom-built L2s settling on our L1 for different entities. We're in discussion with teams like AI Seer and have briefly chatted with Chirper about developing L2s to handle their specific transaction needs. So yeah, I'd say sort of from the bottom up in terms of the L1 capabilities, we're actively working with teams, other infrastructure teams, and don't shy away from that. And then sort of on the vertical scaling side of things, we intend to have L2 as a service solutions for Web2, Web3 companies, etc., catering to different needs, whether it's storage networks or computation networks and massive agent simulation networks. So yeah, very collaborative.
It's a very sharp approach. Makes a lot of sense for a variety of different reasons. And I do want to come back to some of the partnerships, but first, we've spent a lot of time in the design and theory space. I figured we kind of switched up, talk a little bit more about some of the things that have happened practically. Testnet
Yes.
3, for example. I know it launched in late June, so a little bit over a month ago. Since then, we've seen well over 2.5 million accounts, at least 800 to 900,000 concurrent nodes that are operating in this testnet environment. What surprised you most about seeing this massive form of growth?
I think what surprised me the most was just, I've got to give props to our engineering team internally. We've just been refining since June, basically been refining the node operation experience, both on the web app end, where it's one click, and the CLI command line interface end, with a lot of demand like you've seen across the world, and it's running 24/7. They've been nonstop, heads down, improving the experience. We've been working actively with some of our node operation partners to improve that experience. And now we're very comfortable that we've refined the way in which points are distributed, rewards are given, and the proving tasks are allotted. So the web app version is very easy to run on any internet connected device. And then the CLI version, which requires a bit more infrastructure, is much more efficient now, but also earns, I think, 10 to 15 times as many points. And this really provides the baseline for how our compute network is going to operate as we have mainnet launch. But in terms of the success and the growth, I personally attribute that to the ease of providing compute. We really went for an experience that is, again, accessible from any internet connected device. You can have multiple devices running this, contributing to one node ID. And this is really reminiscent of the days of like Pi mining and other sort of mobile web app type crypto mining services. We were playing with some of the messaging around mining as well at the start, and using traditional sort of Web 2 marketing, advertising avenues to get the initial distribution. And we've had a lot of success with referrals. So I think that initial period of getting this, making it as easy as possible for anyone to start feeling like they're contributing and earning rewards, and distributing it as much as possible with familiar messaging that crypto interested folks, but who aren't necessarily on crypto Twitter, would relate to. So props to the marketing team there. I think they did a really good job. And again, this is how I feel we've established a strong moat, is we have these sort of crypto interested users that have been with us for a long time and are ready and willing to engage when any protocols come into work on us. But yeah, that's good. And like we've talked about already, I think the sort of Kaito, very unified crypto system is difficult to break into. We are coming for that and have been running a pretty successful Twitter campaign recently, but our baseline is in this crypto interested user group around the world.
Zig when others zag. I think that's obviously consistently pretty winning strategy. The other big thing is the beauty of user growth creates more and more data points for feedback. And it seems like you guys have been very iterative in this entire process and tested out a variety of different things, and have been very focused on also reducing friction. But were there any other features or documentation gaps that maybe surfaced during testnet, whether it was testnet 1, 2, or 3, that are now kind of a top priority on the engineering roadmap up to mainnet?
Yeah, I would say largely, again, we've been really focused on managing a smooth CLI and proven network experience. The next exciting stage for us is going to be directing our user base, to try out new and familiar apps on our networks. We're excited to be working with our partner base to get ready to deploy for the next sort of testnet phase. And at that point, we'll have a lot of bridging, swapping, token creation, community creation, sort of engagement activities. That's going to help us identify more strongly what our user base is excited about on our network and what tools they're really interested in, but also demonstrate some proof points again for our user base with our partners and community. So really just preparing for those integrations, I think, is the next step in our engineering roadmap, as well as ZKVM 4.0. We are looking to get out that next iteration by year end and around a similar time as our other launches. Yeah, I would say consistent improvements, maintaining the ability of the network to manage the load currently, and then getting some more of these sort of app layer integrations.
It's exciting. It's actually a great segue to talk a little bit more about partnerships. We talked about some a few minutes ago, and some of those stuck out to me. There are a few other that I want to touch on, but before I do that, are there any other teams that you want to highlight or kind of speak to in terms of how you guys are collaborating?
Yeah, Starkware has always been a really strong partner for us. We actually use their Stu Prover in our ZKVM right now, and we'll be continuing to follow their sort of developments and innovations to integrate those in our ZKVM. I would say Dynamic Wallet also is really leading the verification of our user base, and we have a couple things in the works that will really make being a Nexus user and being a part of that ecosystem a lot more pervasive across the internet as we know it. Expect some more stuff there. And then there's so many partners to highlight. I would love to give time to them all. I would say on the AI end, one I haven't shouted out recently is Quill AI Network. And they have obviously, I'm sure, familiar name in the space, but we're excited to work with them on bringing their sort of verifiability AI for securing systems to our sort of ecosystem. One of our big focuses is not just verifiable AI, but using AI to better secure systems, better verify systems, and then also influence economic systems. And they have a lot of experience and proven track record there. So we're excited to bring that into our ecosystem to make the Nexus ecosystem as safe and, non-drainer token as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's all very cohesive and thoughtful, and I appreciate hearing more and more about that as time goes on. On the other end of the spectrum, I'm curious. A lot of these teams are bigger in nature and bigger just kind of in brand recognition. Are there any maybe upstarts or teams that you're incubating or that are building natively with you that might be worth kind of talking through? I mean, I'm sure some of that might be confidential at this point, but even just kind of directionally, maybe some of the ideas they're working on would be great to hear about.
Yeah, I'd say keeping most of that under wraps for now. We are excited to release some of our sort of ecosystem support initiatives coming up, a lot of developer engagement events, accelerator, etc. That will come at around a couple months before the mainnet launch, so very soon. Beyond that, I would say AI Seer is this fact-checking agent system, the one times best invention of 2024. They are looking to build out some of their layer 2 solution with us and use us for verifiability. And within that layer 2 ecosystem, we hope to incubate a number of applications that build on top of their fact-checking information. They have a great idea, some Rotten Tomatoes or prediction market style websites for how truthful politicians might be. And so I think you can have a really interesting app design layer space there. But beyond that, really looking for AI optimized business models, tooling, primitives, and then protocols. We're working with some teams on what does advertising look like for an AI agent-led future? How does that change from maybe emotion-based, colorful aesthetic to much more data resource optimization with AI agents? Similarly, what does it look like to have the protocols in love optimized for those agents or a landscape with far more AI assets on chain? A lot of stuff around that, the blend of AI and traditional assets, as well as bring on non-Web 2 teams or Web 3 interested teams. Not too much more to reveal.
That's a lot. That was more than I was expecting. So it's great to hear that that's obviously like a focal point for you guys going forward. And related to a lot of this, are there any tooling or SDKs that are currently live that I could kind of tap into?
I would say the most immediate tooling, I still personally need to update our tool documentation, so that's on me. But you have tools like Hive AI, Hive Intelligence, which basically decodes or synthesizes blockchain data into natural language for agents to use. So that will basically allow any Web 2 agent-based framework to easily decode and understand what's going on chain. And then we have a Nexus MCP server that can also be hosted in a trusted execution environment with one of our partners, Lunal, which you can again use regular Web 2 agent framework to read and then write onto our chain. So those are the primary tools available there right now, but we are looking to bring on some of those notable agent frameworks. But I think really we are very aware of how Web 2 AI is leading the field here. And we're especially entrenched in the Stanford and San Francisco Bay Area. Again, currently keeping it a bit open. Frameworks change a lot of the time. MCP seems to be sticking around. We're currently designing for that MCP focus, which also works well with our sort of developer engagement initiatives here. There's a lot of MCP nights in the San Francisco Bay Area, and suddenly that's a great way to onboard people to Web3 is saying, hey, you can interact with this blockchain, read, write, create smart contracts, etc., simply from the tools already.
That's awesome. So, Alec, how does the integration with Iris make life easier for developers, as they're saving files or modeling outputs over time?
Yeah, so we're super excited to work with Iris Network. Right off the bat, Iris is going to be offered as one of our sort of trusted and preferred storage toolings for any decentralized storage needs for our developers. And as we approach mainnet, we're going to be working to integrate that directly into the storage layer, again, to add expansive storage capabilities for any developers, protocols, agents, layer 2s building on us, as well as the own Nexus team and our storage needs. Yeah, super excited to work with Iris. And within the next month or so, you'll be able to start using Iris Network in our test at our docs, and happy to provide those links.
Yeah, we're equally excited, and I would ask how you see the relationship evolving over time, but it seems pretty straightforward. So very, very much looking forward to this partnership, this collaboration, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for it to grow over time.
Yeah, and I think we're adding privacy capabilities with our ZK VM. Once we've matured those capabilities and features, will also be something interesting to experiment with.
You've nodded to a few features or upgrades on the roadmap over the next few months, but over the next year or so, is there anything that you're personally really excited about to see kind of fruition on the tech side?
I can get to the tech side. I would say personally, I'm excited for accelerator and ecosystem explosion season. Right now, we're really laying that foundation for a strong, stable ecosystem that's healthy and people can really use seamlessly. But I love talking to builders. I love ideating with builders. I'm obviously leading the BD here. And I'm just excited for seeding those ideas, growing them from seedlings to fully fledged trees, and that journey of supporting multiple protocols developers, whether from other ecosystems or newly specific to Nexus over a 1.5 year period. So I'm really excited for that. I think that'll be super exciting for our user base. One of the technical things we're eager to explore and are in talks with right now is setting up basically a consistent airdrop pipeline where part of the value that protocols get from deploying on Nexus is, again, that almost immediate access and distribution to our user base of 2.5 million plus at the moment through a really seamless airdrop system. So that is, in our minds, a two-way beneficial technical setup where when we have it seamless, any project can basically permissionlessly go and deploy tokens to every Nexus wallet. Suddenly you get brand recognition by those users, and also all Nexus users get consistent values. Yeah, I'd say those two go in hand. I'm excited to bring on and cultivate these new projects. And then technically we're setting up a way for new projects to instantly get brand distribution, and then Nexus users to get week-on-week airdrops and other kinds of product launches. So
sounds like it's a good time to be a Nexus user. So, say we run into each other 2-3 years from now. Maybe it's August 2027, August 2028. If everything goes right, how are people using Nexus at that point in time?
Gosh, so many ways. I would say they're using Nexus to basically store, save, and use their money smartly. So that's probably one. We want to basically have the best incentives for keeping your money assets on Nexus chain, and then basically have these flagship yield optimization products built on a lot of what we're seeing right now. The success, I think we're seeing a lot of success in these autonomous financial agents, specifically for optimizing between lending protocols. So we're definitely going to have that as a flagship component where if your money is on Nexus chain, it is earning 5 to 15% automatically. And then basically, again, creating these opportunities where you have a personal agent that recommends you new products to try, engage with. Hey, you got airdrop this, check out their product here, you will like it. You're really leaning into the AI-driven benefits of Web3 through recommendation algorithms and that kind of thing. I would say that's one. And I think number two is probably really focused on sub-community growth, encouraging users to create their own communities. I think in Web3, we know this is like creating a meme coin with a bunch of people, creating an NFT with a bunch of people. But given all this new enterprise, new business we're targeting to bring on, we're hoping to bring some of that sort of strong community formation to these brands. I think this sort of the Web3 strength in community has been prevalent in the internet since the start of the internet, right? But I think it's a lot more niche in Web 2 and it's a lot more prominent in Web 3. And you have these super fans, right? They're almost like brand ambassadors for your brand. So bringing that to brands and having this bi-directional benefit is really, that's like the stasis, the equilibrium point I want us to be at in a couple years where, again, permissionlessly, automatically, brands are able to distribute to a massive network. Suddenly sub-communities start forming around that brand, sub-regional groups forming meetups and all that kind of thing. You have a very seamless process to bootstrap, grow and maintain communities and the use space across the world. Yeah, I think that was a pretty good answer.
I think so as well. And aside from anything in the Nexus ecosystem, what are you most excited about in crypto, or maybe even more broadly over the next couple of years?
Great question. And I'll put it back to you off this. I would say for crypto, honestly, I think it's right now, it's the like getting to $0 cross-border payments. I read a stat a while ago that may not be accurate anymore, but Western Union takes 30 to 40%. My girlfriend's mother, we were asking her, okay, what do you use? She's crypto interested. She uses Western Union, but she's super interested in no cost remittance payments. And then also this sort of stablecoin yield optimization I've been talking about. It's definitely excited. And it feels like we're seeing this to get that in the hands of as many people as possible. And then I think that just opens the floodgates, right? After that, things like programmable IP, I've always been bullish on. I think we are a little early for people to really understand what that could do for them. But I think that we're at this point right now where these like the empowerment promise of crypto is actually starting to be adopted by mainstream. So hopefully having that baseline of everyone knows, okay, I can send money across the world for free. I should just expect that. And I should be able to expect 5 to 15% yield on my capital. Getting to a point where we're there, I think I'll be very happy, and that just helps the world. In terms of what I'm excited for the future, I personally am excited for this convergence of AI and crypto that I think will probably need to happen. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but I think there will be a convergence, and maybe it comes from this foundational level we get to where people are using stable coins, people are using yield agents, and then suddenly everyone has a wallet, and suddenly that's the best way to access someone with an AI agent or something. And sort of you have this influx. So yeah, I think that two-step domino is what I'm excited for. What about you?
Well, first off, there's a lot to kind of unpack there. And I would say I'm actually bullish and parallel with a variety of different things that you laid out. Obviously, stable coins being the first component of PMF that you've seen in crypto, and everything that kind of builds off of that. I think for me, the through line really comes down to regulation. It's becoming so much more friendly in the US for builders to come back. And, you're not going to be worried about getting sued anymore by the SEC because, Hester Pierce is going to be a lot more friendly as opposed to Gensler. I think even when you look at, like across the board in the US government, there's a lot more positive progression in terms of different bills that are being presented. And I think it ultimately paves the way for more frequent revenue generating tokens. And that's where a lot of value will really be unlocked, in my opinion, in the space.
Love to see that.
Yeah. So who knows how it actually plays out, but that's what I'm hoping for. And I think, that domino falls, then it becomes a lot more efficient to build out something that's related to kind of the core components of AI that's fully on chain, that has a lot of the beautiful components of open source, but also allows for orchestration around revenue and reward generation. And then you're able to more easily progress in an open source manner and compete against some of these closed source teams that, as we all know, are going to be, very value extractive over time, very opaque, very hard to control. And so, yeah, I think, there's a very positive light. And I think there are also lots of camps that are a lot more focused on preserving that core ethos of crypto. There are some camps that are also starting to kind of lean into, oh, maybe we failed, and so let's just kind of adapt to the traditional financial ecosystem and work with them. And that's a little scary, but I think the former will win out, and it's just kind of a matter of seeing it all come together. And I think the first domino there really is on the regulatory front. So, long story short, that's what I'm excited about.
Thank you for that. It's definitely interesting. The last bit you mentioned sticks with me. Like, are we sacrificing everything that Satoshi went out to create for attention and adoption and all that? I think for a period it will be like that, but I do have faith that new, positive, privacy preserving sort of empowerment technologies will come to the fore. And have a space and a product market fit even in that future. Not that it's good. When there's a will, there's a way. The dark web existed while the regular internet. And if people really have a need for outside of the box, outside of heavy banking ownership, I think that will exist, whether for good or bad. But yeah, thank you for your take too.
Yeah, of course. And to bring it back full circle, as we actually do kind of wrap it up here, for those listening, how can they get involved with Nexus? What can people do, right now, the next few months? What would you kind of push them towards?
Great question. Thank you for that. Good way to wrap up. I would say try out the Nexus OS. So that is going to be our everything app. You can provide compute and start earning rewards with one click from your web browser. That's app.nexus.xyz. And we have a full app store with all of our partners and different applications you can use related to and on Nexus. Also, check out our Twitter at Nexus Labs. We are running an active engagement campaign there where users are being rewarded with badges and points for doing certain tasks. And yeah, I would say stay in the loop. We are about to go through a very exciting 6 to 9 months, and that's just the beginning. And if you're a developer or builder and you align with some of what I've said, please reach out to me. My X handle is at OXAlecJames. So yeah, always eager and happy to chat with people with big ideas to improve the world. And yeah, thank you to Jake and the Hirys team. We're also very excited to be working with them, and do give them a follow at Hirys Network.
Appreciate that. Appreciate the shout out. Alec, that's been an awesome conversation. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.